Story 1. I had really bad acne when I was 19. The guy at the grocery store came up to me in front of all of my friends and asked, "What's that disease on your face? Will I catch it if I get too close to you?" He had genuine concern in his eyes. I cried for years. Story 2. My sister was getting fitted in my grandma's vintage dress for prom. I had mentioned how I would like to wear it when I went to prom. Then Grandma said, "This dress is too pretty for you." Story 3. It was either family members and close friends accusing me of lying about being sexually abused by another family member, or the fact that they know the truth because he admitted it and are still making excuses for the abuser and saying he's a good person. Story 4. My adoptive mother, when she had a bit too much wine, once said this, "Do you know why we adopted you? All of our friends were having kids, and we needed one to keep up. My parents were very abusive to me. Lots of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. They were also very cold and distant. In that instant, I finally understood my childhood. I understood why they never cared. I understood why they never hugged me. I understood why they were so mean to me. I never mattered. I was a prop, an object to be brought out when needed, and to be put away when it wasn't. Every question I ever had about my childhood was answered that day." Story 5. Last conversation I had with my grandma before she died. She said, "It must be so difficult given your cousins are all more successful than you. I was deemed less successful because I have overcome alcoholism and trauma. I'm not married, and I don't have kids. Meanwhile, I have 2 master's degrees. But God forbid I'm not raising children." That really stung. Story 6. I was not a very attractive child, overweight and weird. We were on a school trip in year 6, and we stayed in a motel. We were being served dinner by the owner. He said he needed to feed the dog and then handed me a plate. It's been 40 years, and I still remember. Story 7. I was laughing, and a girl was laughing with me. She looked over and said, "Oh my gosh, you're so ugly." And I literally never laugh without thinking about it. It was probably about 7 years ago too. Story 8. I have bad teeth due to genetics. When I was 13, my dentist said, "For such a pretty girl, you sure do have an ugly mouth." My mom immediately stood up for me and cussed the guy out. I left completely broken and in tears as it was something I couldn't help. I had always had good hygiene. Story 9. When I couldn't help out on a Saturday in 1973 because I was taking the Scholastic Aptitude Test, my dad said I shouldn't bother. He said I was too stupid for college and that I should just be a waitress. Story 10. My father, during one of my visits home from school, "Honestly, I can't wait until you leave sometimes." I told him that was a terrible thing to say, and he responded, "Well, it's true." Story 11. I used to work at a local fast food chain as a window cashier, and I once dropped a man's debit card while handing it out the window, and he called me a stupid person. Story 12. A veteran here once had a girlfriend say the only thing I was good for was killing people. Thanks for all the well wishes and gratitude. I answered this question, just remembering the worst comment I have ever received. I was not expecting all of the positive energy from you all. Thank you. I have always been proud of my service, and most of the people I meet in and out of uniform every day make it worth it for me. Thanks to all the airmen, Marines, soldiers, and sailors out there. I'm proud to have served with you all. Story 13. I used to occasionally be a bit insecure about my looks. My ex told me it's my personality I need to work on and not my looks. The same ex ignored a sexy photo I sent him, and when I brought it up a week or so later, he said he thought it could have been better. Story 14. Wasn't so much something literally said, but rather a pointed action that said it all. They went into the kitchen and brought me back a butcher knife when I opened up about feeling suicidal. Story 15. Some context. In my second year of university, I lived with a group of roommates and we would have or go to house parties every weekend. I don't drink that much, and at the time I was going through a depressive episode, so I would often stay in my room or leave early. Anyway, one random day, my roommate Jess, not her real name, was ranting about how she's scared to tell our other roommates that she decided to stop drinking at parties. I told her that it's okay, I don't drink either, and they've never been mean to me about it. To this, Jess replied, "It's not the same because when I say I'm not going to go, they pressure me. But with you, they don't even notice when you leave." I don't know if she meant it in the way I received it, but it's been 5 years since then, and it still sticks with me. Story 16. Do you eat your lunch alone at school? Sometimes. Yeah, it shows. Some random guy said it to me at a party. I was drunk, but I remember that somehow. It stung. Story 17. I had been chatting with a guy at the bar, just casual drunk talk. I said, "Well, I'm going to take off. Nice talking to you." He said, "Yeah, those 7 cats at home aren't going to feed themselves." Story 18. The doctors got your conceived date wrong. They thought you had Down syndrome and wanted me to abort you. Sometimes I wish I had listened. Not as bad, but my mother-in-law has taken it upon herself to blame my lower body mass index for my advanced disc degeneration and texts me every few days about how terrible I look and that I need to eat better. I'm not a big fan of mothers. Story 19. My high-achieving older sister was a few years above me in high school. I was a good student, but I wasn't as clever or as good-looking. One day, a teacher found out I was her sister, and she said, "So if she got the brains and the looks, what were you left with?" Story 20. I know you have depression, but everyone gets sad sometimes. Yes, thank you. I'm happy for you that it's only temporary for you. But depression is a little different, honey. Story 21. My family is really strange, and my mom and her sisters like to compare their children. I have a cousin who is 3 years older than me, and we have always been compared to each other throughout our childhood. As we are both girls and close in age, it was almost like a competition over which one of their children was the best. One Christmas, my mom was talking about how smart I am, and my uncle said, "Well, there is always a smart and ugly one and a beautiful and dumb one." This single comment absolutely ruined my cousins and my childhood. We were only 15 and 18 when this was said, but now we are actually best friends, as we both experienced such comments throughout our childhood. We mutually agreed that those comments were made by a bunch of insecure adults, and we have pretty much cut out our whole family from our lives. We are much happier now. Story 22. I had just found out I was pregnant, and the father said, "You know you're not keeping it, don't you?" Spoiler alert. I kept the baby and got rid of him. Story 23. Got discharged from Navy boot camp for nonsense, due to a delayed entry program, poor recruiters, and unhelpful parents. Came home and got work in a deli. Had a customer mention he was in the Navy, and I said, "Oh, cool. I was in boot camp but had to come home." His response was, "Oh, heh. Well, look at you now." I bounced back, worked hard enough to get into college on my own, earned a bachelor's degree in information systems, got a good job, and have been happily married for 14 years. But I remember that hurt so much, being at such a low point. Story 24. I have had a lot of the most horrible things anyone can say to another human being screamed in my face. The one that always sticks with me is "kill yourself" or any variation of that. I've had so many people who I loved and thought loved me say that to me, and I'm honestly running out of reasons to not just do it. Story 25. I was in the back doing dishes and cleaning other machinery when I thought I heard the doorbell. I turned the water off and started to head up front. Halfway there, the person started shouting, "Hello? Hello? Is there anyone here? Sorry, I was in the back doing dishes. You can stop shouting now." The interaction was going all right. Then it came time for goodbyes. "Want your receipt?" "No, but your number would be nice." "The best I can do is a receipt." I dropped the smile because, God forbid, he thinks I'm flirting. Oh, come on. Too good to get coffee with someone like me after work? I don't date customers. I work alone. At this point, my full alert, be ready to fight and defend instincts come into play. Well, forget you too. You're not even that attractive. You're just an overweight jerk. Go back to the back and harm yourself because you're ugly. I was just trying to be nice. Like, yep, 100% appropriate response to being turned down. Story 26. From my ex of 5 years. That I'm not a human being. I'm just a body, just a creature, and a bitch. That was the first time his mask fell off. Before that, he was a perfect man to me. Story 27. One of my university professors told me I would never succeed because of my thick Texas accent. I have 3 graduate degrees, including a Doctor of Philosophy and a curriculum vitae 3 times as long as his. That's Dr. Redneck to him. Yeehaw. Story 28. Ex-girlfriend texted me, "No wonder your brother killed himself." After I broke up with her. My brother passed away 2 weeks prior. It didn't really bother me because she was completely insane, and I knew she was just venting, but I think that's probably the meanest thing someone said to me. Story 29. My dad left me a note informing me that I was grounded and called me cruel, cold, and heartless. I was 15 at the time, and he was referencing me talking to someone and telling them that all the puppies my dad was selling were kept outside and I was the only one taking care of them, and I felt like I was running a puppy mill. Something about him writing it down made it hurt even more. Story 30. No one would have you, said by my ex to me some 20+ years ago. She is still single after 4 subsequent relationships have gone south. I have been with my partner for the last 17 years. Story 31. You are only worth it for the one-night stands. That really sucked. I haven't dated in a year, and I'm looking again, and that's the first encounter I get. Story 32. Ex told me I was a depreciating asset and he was an appreciating one, and that when he left, nobody else would ever want me. We were 3 months apart in age, but I guess that's what he believed about women getting older. Story 33. Ex-wife once said to me, "You failed at life." That cut really deep. I guess she didn't appreciate having a loving, devoted man who gave her a home and 2 kids and happy memories for 16 years. Story 34. Nothing I have experienced comes close to some of these horrific stories. I am sure people have said mean things about me. Apparently, it is mostly behind my back. Story 35. My dad told me he hoped I burned in hell and never found peace over 2 shots of moonshine that he couldn't find. He didn't remember it, but he had drunk it earlier before going on his tirade. Story 36. My father, when I was 12 years old and quite noticeably gay, said, "You will never amount to anything, you'll pick oranges." My father was a son of a gun, and my mother was a worthless person. After my father died, I got a lawyer and never spoke to any of them again. Story 37. High school me. Mom, I'm struggling with life right now, and I don't know how to handle it or these emotions. Everything is difficult, and I just can't do it anymore. I don't like growing up. Mom, get over it. Story 38. From my bipolar mom, who I recently had to move back in with. She was ecstatic to have me back, but a month ago she had an episode and told me, "I feel like killing myself just to get away from you. The night before, we had dinner together, and it was nice. Bipolar disorder sucks." Story 39. Once wrote my mom a note when I was in elementary school that I was sorry that she was stressed and that if she and dad needed to go on a vacation without us kids, our uncle and aunt could watch us. It was a lot longer, but you get the gist. She blew up and said if I thought she was stressed. Maybe it's because I wasn't doing well enough and that maybe I should try harder and do more work. I was in 5th grade. Story 40. Maybe God isn't blessing you with a husband because you don't want children, my mom. If there was a house fire and I had to choose between me and my cousin, I would pick my cousin because I don't really know me, my grandmother said to my mother while I was in my bedroom, listening as they looked at family photos on the wall in the hallway. I was 10. Story 41. My ex-husband is bipolar with delusions and was suicidal because he had an affair that resulted in a child, and I left him over it. He struggled with his mental health for months. He said he would redo everything if he could, but I couldn't forgive it. My next boyfriend, with whom I have a daughter, said he was suicidal because I'm a horrible person to deal with and I make people want to harm themselves, and I'm the reason my ex wanted to end it. The cruelest thing by far I've been told. Story 42. It's a toss-up between my mom accusing me of throwing the fact that I was sexually abused in our home in her face when I felt like making her feel like a bad parent. Hint. I didn't. My dad telling me it didn't matter that he never saw us when he had a job with a long commute because his colleagues and his clients were like his family, and my ex-partner telling me I wasn't good enough to marry. Story 43. On my birthday when I turned 19, I was working at an electronics store. I was selling a camera to someone who was a plastic surgeon and needed it to take before and after photos. While ringing him up, he said something along the lines of, "You could use a nose job." My nose has always been my biggest insecurity growing up. I held back my tears, and he ruined my birthday. Story 44. I'm adopted, and I was out at a bar with one of my cousins. He's about 10 years younger. It was cool to see him. During the night, he turns to me and says, "You're not a real last name, you're adopted." I haven't spoken to him since. That was about 13 years ago. In the moment, I just pushed it off. But my girlfriend sat down with me and was like, "That is heavy." He wasn't joking. Story 45. When I was in third grade, I worked hard to make the honor roll. When I found a certificate on my desk, one of the girls in my class insisted that it was a mistake and made a point to alert the teacher. Story 46. When I was a teenager, I moved to a new state and lived with only my alcoholic stepmom and her daughter, both of whom I met when I moved in. Anyway, my stepmom would get very aggressive when drunk. She had a penchant for advising me I should think about killing myself more, which was harder to take as a 14-year-old. My dad was home 2 weeks a year, which was apparently a good opportunity to let me know I was a disappointment and threatened to kick me out of the house because I didn't want to spend time with the stepfamily. He didn't believe a word I said about the adult. Very cool 4 years. They divorced after she drained his bank accounts and moved in with another guy I guess she was seeing, which is ironically exactly how she and my dad got together. I'm pretty sure there might be a lesson to be had there. I haven't heard from my dad in some time, except for the increasingly rare text whining about not understanding where he went wrong raising his sons, and how he's embarrassed to tell people he has kids who don't talk to him, and so on. I get the sense that life can be pretty depressing after decades of being an absolute dipshit. To be honest, it feels kind of gross enjoying how obviously miserable that guy is, but whatever, eventually I won't think about him at all, and I look forward to that.